She was just a hard-working Ghanaian nurse in Korea, never imagining that one accident would bring her face to face with a billionaire CEO who couldn't stop chasing her heart. But what began as endless excuses to see her turned into a love story neither of them could escape. Grab your coffee and enjoy this love story. The emergency doors flew open. Nurses and doctors rushed in with a stretcher. On it lay Lee Min-suk, one of Korea's youngest billionaires. His white shirt was soaked in blood, his face pale, his body almost lifeless. Pulses dropping. "Get him to surgery now," shouted doctor. Bright hospital lights flashed above him as they pushed him down the corridor. Within seconds, everything went black. Hours later, Min-suk's eyelids twitched before slowly opening. The room was quiet except for the beeping of machines. His body ached, but the first thing his blurry eyes focused on was her. A nurse stood by his bed, checking his foredrip. She wasn't just beautiful. She carried herself with calm strength. Her brown skin glowed under the harsh hospital lights, and her neat braids were tied back in a bun. She looked professional, confident, and in control. When she saw him awake, she leaned closer. "You're finally up," she said firmly. "How do you feel?" Min-suk blinked, dazed. For a moment, he only stared at her like she was unreal. "Am I in heaven?" he whispered weakly. The nurse frowned, crossing her arms. "No, you're at Seoul Private Hospital, and you're lucky to be alive." Even in pain, Min-suk's lips curved into a small smile. "Then you must be the angel who saved me." She shook her head, unimpressed. "I'm your nurse, not your angel. My name is Vivian Mensah, and if you want to stay alive, you'll stop wasting breath and rest." Min-suk chuckled softly, though it hurt. He hadn't heard anyone speak to him so directly in years. "Vivian," he repeated slowly as if memorizing it. "Then promise me you'll be here when I wake up again." Vivian adjusted his blanket, her expression calm. "Sleep. I don't make promises to difficult patients." She turned to leave, but Min-suk's quiet voice stopped her. "Thank you, Vivian, for saving me." She paused, just for a moment, then allowed the smallest smile to appear before walking out. Lying back, Min-suk closed his eyes again, but his thoughts raced. A Ghanaian nurse with eyes sharp as glass and a heart steady as stone. Who exactly is Vivian Mensah? The billionaire who once thought he had everything suddenly felt he had found the one thing he didn't want to lose. The next morning, Lee Min-suk stirred weakly in bed. His body still felt heavy, every breath a reminder of the accident. The quiet beeping of the machines was the only sound keeping him company, until the door opened softly. Vivian Mensah stepped inside, holding a small tray. Her white uniform was neat, her braids tied back, her expression calm as always. She moved with the steady confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. "Good morning, Mr. Lee," she said gently. "How are you feeling today?" Min-suk's lips parted, his voice low. "Still tired." Vivian nodded. She placed the tray down, checking the drip beside his bed. Her hands were precise, careful, but there was warmth in her touch when she adjusted his blanket. "You lost a lot of blood," she explained softly. "It will take time. Don't rush yourself." For a moment, Min-suk just looked at her. He wasn't used to this. Someone speaking to him without fear, without formality. Not as a billionaire, not as a man with power, but simply as a patient. "You've been here every time I wake up," he murmured. Vivian glanced at him, then smiled faintly. "That's my job. I'm your nurse." But something in her tone carried more than duty, it carried care. She lifted a cup of water and guided it toward him. "Drink slowly." Min-suk obeyed, his eyes never leaving hers. The cool water slid down his throat, and somehow the simple act of being cared for touched him more deeply than the luxury he was used to. When he coughed lightly, Vivian was quick to pat his back. "Easy," she said, her voice steady. "You'll get stronger. One step at a time." Min-suk gave a weak smile. "You sound so sure." Vivian's eyes softened. because I've seen many recover. And you will too. She adjusted his pillow and stepped back, making notes on her clipboard. For a brief moment, the room felt calm, almost peaceful. As Vivian turned to leave, Min-suk whispered, "Thank you, Vivian." She looked back, her expression unreadable, then gave the smallest nod before walking out. Left alone, Min-suk closed his eyes again, not from weakness this time, but with a strange comfort in his chest. For the first time in years, someone saw him not as Korea's billionaire, but simply as a man who needed care. The days passed slowly. Lee Min-suk was getting stronger, but his body still ached whenever he tried to sit up. Every morning, the routine was the same. Nurses checked in, doctors came for updates, and the hours dragged on. But Min-suk wasn't waiting for the doctors. He was waiting for her. The sound of footsteps in the corridor made his chest tighten. And when the door opened and Vivian Mensah stepped in, carrying her clipboard, his world suddenly felt brighter. "Good morning," she said, her voice calm as always. "How's the pain today?" Min-suk leaned back on his pillow, pretending to look pitiful. "Terrible. I can't even move my arm." Vivian walked over, checked his bandage carefully, then raised an eyebrow. "Strange. The chart says your healing is faster than expected." Caught, Min-suk smiled sheepishly. "Maybe I just miss your voice." Vivian shook her head, but there was the faintest curve at the corner of her lips. She adjusted his fore and wrote notes. "You're not the first rich man to try charming a nurse. It won't work on me." He chuckled softly, though his body still felt weak. "Maybe. But you're the first person who talks to me like I'm normal. Not a CEO. Not a billionaire. Just a man in a bed." Her hands paused for a moment before she continued writing. She didn't respond, but Min-suk saw the flicker in her eyes. Later that afternoon, he tried to sit up on his own. Pain shot through his side and he winced. Almost immediately, Vivian rushed back in. "Yeah, what are you doing?" "You'll tear your stitches," she scolded, rushing to support him. Min-suk grinned through the pain. I was testing if you'd come back quickly." Vivian sighed, adjusting his pillow. "You really are impossible." But as she leaned closer to help him, Min-suk caught the faint scent of her perfume. Something warm spread through him, stronger than any medicine. When she finally stepped back, she gave him a firm look. "Stop trying to impress me and focus on recovery." Min-suk smiled, eyes never leaving her. "Then you'll have to keep coming to check on me, every day." Vivian didn't answer, but her silence spoke louder than words. Min-suk's strength slowly returned. The doctors were happy, but he had one secret. He wasn't ready to leave the hospital. Not yet, because leaving meant not seeing Vivian. Every day, new nurses came to check on him, but Min-suk would turn his head away like a spoiled child. "No, call Nurse Vivian," he muttered, pretending to be weak. One nurse sighed. "But sir, she is busy." "I said only Vivian," Min-suk interrupted with fake coughs, clutching his chest dramatically as if he was dying. When Vivian finally entered, annoyed and tired from her shift, Min-suk suddenly became calm. His eyes lit up like a boy seeing candy. "There you are," he said softly, almost sweetly. Vivian placed her hands on her hips. "Mr. Min-suk, stop behaving like this. Other nurses can take care of you. I am not your personal servant. But you are the only one who makes me feel better," he replied with fake weakness, his voice low, though a little smile played on his lips. Vivian rolled her eyes, but adjusted his blanket anyway. Deep inside, her heart warmed at how he trusted her so much, but she would never admit it. "You're impossible," she said. Min-suk closed his eyes dramatically, holding his chest. "Then let me stay impossible as long as you're here." Vivian shook her head, but this time she was smiling too. The doctors finally declared Min-suk fit to go home. His wounds were healing, his energy was back. "Congratulations, Mr. Min-suk. You are free to leave," the doctor said with a smile. But Min-suk's face froze. Leave. That meant no more Vivian checking on him. No more excuses to hear her voice or watch her smile. No, I don't feel well yet, he said quickly, grabbing his stomach. Sharp pain. Very sharp. Maybe appendix. The doctor frowned. You don't even have an appendix. It was removed 5 years ago. Min-suk blinked. Ah, then maybe my heart. Something feels wrong here. He clutched his chest dramatically and closed his eyes. The nurses exchanged looks, trying not to laugh. Everyone could see through his act. Everyone, except Vivian, who walked in just then. What's happening here? She asked, raising her brow. Min-suk immediately opened one eye, saw her, and then shut it again. Ah, Vivian. Thank God you came. Only you can save me. Vivian sighed loudly. You are healed, Mr. Min-suk. Stop pretending. But Min-suk shook his head like a stubborn child. I can't leave. What if I collapse? Who will catch me? Only you. Vivian glared at Min-suk, but her lips curved into a small smile she quickly hid. He was ridiculous, but part of her heart enjoyed the attention. The hospital staff were relieved when Min-suk finally signed his discharge papers. Vivian even helped him walk to the car, smiling politely as he waved goodbye. But the peace didn't last. 2 days later, Min-suk stormed back into the emergency ward, holding his head. Help! My brain, it feels like fireworks, he shouted dramatically. The doctors rushed to check him. Blood pressure? Normal. Heart rate? Perfect. Temperature? Fine. Then Vivian walked in. He immediately grabbed her hand. Vivian, it's you. My head only calms down when you touch me. Vivian rolled her eyes so hard the other nurses almost laughed out loud. Mr. Min-suk, there is nothing wrong with you. Go home and rest. But Min-suk shook his head like a child. No, my condition is rare. Only you can treat me. By the 3rd day, it became a running joke. Min-suk appeared again, this time with a bandage on his arm. What happened now? Vivian asked, sighing. He grinned sheepishly. Paper cut. Very deep. Life-threatening. Needed you to clean it. The nurses burst into laughter behind them. Vivian shook her head, trying to stay professional, but she couldn't hide the small laugh that escaped her lips. Every excuse was crazier than the last. Stomach ache from missing her smile, fever from dreaming about her, dizziness from thinking too much about her. And every time, no matter how ridiculous, he always insisted. Call Vivian. Only Vivian. Vivian tried to act annoyed, but inside, she was slowly realizing something. He wasn't just playing around. Beneath all the comedy, his eyes carried a truth she was scared to name. That night, Vivian finally got home after another long shift. She dropped her bag, sat on her bed, and sighed. But then, without warning, she remembered the ridiculous way Min-suk had held his head and cried out, Fireworks in my brain! She burst into laughter. Vivian shook her head. This man is unbelievable, she whispered, but her smile refused to fade. She lay back on her pillow, covering her face, but she could still see his stubborn eyes, his childish grin, and the way he refused to let any nurse touch him except her. Vivian scolded herself. Don't even think about it, Vivian. He's just a spoiled billionaire. But the truth was clear. He had already stolen a corner of her thoughts. Meanwhile, in his penthouse office, Min-suk was supposed to be working. The table was stacked with contracts, his laptop open, and his assistant nervously waiting for instructions. But Min-suk wasn't reading a single word. He kept staring at his phone, scrolling through nothing, smiling like a fool. His mind replayed Vivian's voice, the way she hid her laugh, and the warmth of her hand. Sir, should I prepare the reports? His assistant asked carefully. HM? Reports. Min-suk blinked, realizing he had signed his name upside down on the paper. He quickly snatched it back, embarrassed. Instead of focusing, he leaned back in his chair and whispered, Vivian! For the first time in years, The billionaire didn't care about money, deals, or board meetings. His world was now divided into two things: time with Vivian and time wasted waiting to see her again. The next morning, Min-suk sat in his car outside his company building. He was supposed to go in for a big investors meeting, but his mind was racing with one thought: how to see Vivian again. "Sir, shall we go in?" his driver asked. Min-suk shook his head. "No, drive me to the hospital." The driver blinked. "Again, sir? But you're perfectly fine." Min-suk quickly held his stomach and groaned loudly. "Ah, I feel something strange. Maybe my heart, maybe my liver. No, definitely my brain." The driver sighed. "Sir, yesterday it was your head. Before that it was your leg." "Exactly." Min-suk snapped. "It's spreading. Do you want me to die?" Without another word, the car turned toward the hospital. Meanwhile, Vivian was finishing her morning rounds. She checked a patient's score, gave another her medication, and finally sat down for a quick rest. Suddenly, she heard the familiar voice echoing through the hallway. "Where's Nurse Vivian? Only Vivian can save me." Her head dropped into her hands. Not again. She stood up and walked out, and there he was, Min-suk, clutching his chest dramatically, leaning on the wall as if he might collapse at any second. Nurses were already crowding him, confused. Move, he cried, waving them off. "Only Nurse Vivian. She understands my condition." Vivian crossed her arms, staring at him. "Mr. Min-suk, what is it this time?" "My heart," he whispered dramatically. Then, with a playful smirk, he added, "It's beating too fast every time I see you." Vivian's face went hot. She quickly turned away. "You're unbelievable." But as she helped him to a bed, she couldn't hide her small smile. And Min-suk, lying there, looked at her like she was the only medicine he ever needed. Min-suk sat upright on the hospital bed, a mischievous grin playing on his lips. The private ward was quiet, only the soft hum of the air conditioner filling the space. Vivian entered, holding his chart, her expression calm but slightly stern. "Mr. Min-suk," she sighed, checking his vitals. "Your heartbeat is fine. Your temperature is fine. Everything is fine." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "No, Nurse Vivian. Everything is not fine." Vivian froze, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" With a deep breath, Min-suk finally let it out. "I can't stop thinking about you. From the moment I opened my eyes after surgery, you've been the only medicine I need." Vivian's eyes widened, and then immediately she shook her head. "Mr. Min-suk, this is a hospital, not a hotel. You can't just come here pretending to be sick for attention." Her tone was sharp, but her heart pounded as she tried to keep her composure. "I don't care about the hospital," Min-suk said softly, his usual confidence fading into sincerity. "I care about you." Vivian took a step back, clutching the chart tightly. "You can't say things like that. You're a patient. I'm a nurse. This is not right." But when she looked at him again, she saw no playfulness in his eyes, only raw honesty, that made her chest tighten in ways she wasn't ready to admit. She turned away quickly, pretending to scribble notes. "Please don't do this again. You're fine and you know it." Min-suk smiled faintly, even at her scolding. "Maybe I'm fine physically, but my heart," he tapped his chest, "is sick for you, Vivian." Vivian rolled her eyes, but her lips curved into the tiniest smile she tried to hide. That night, Vivian sat by her small apartment window, the city lights glowing behind her. She told herself she shouldn't think about him. He was her patient, and not just any patient, but a billionaire who could have any woman he wanted. Yet his words kept replaying in her mind. "I love you, Vivian." Her lips curved into an unconscious smile, and she quickly shook her head, scolding herself. "Vivian, stop it. He's just teasing. He's not serious," she whispered, but her heart was beating faster. Meanwhile, in his penthouse, Min-suk Lee sat at his work desk, piles of documents before him. For once, he couldn't focus. He tapped his pen, stared at the city skyline, and thought of only one face, Vivian's. Every laugh, every scolding, every time she walked into the ward, it all played in his mind like a movie. He leaned back in his chair, smirking to himself. She thinks I'm joking, but I'm not. The night was quiet, yet both of them, nurse and billionaire, lay awake, smiling secretly as though an invisible thread was tying their hearts together. The next morning, Vivian walked briskly into the hospital, her nurse uniform neat and her hair tied back. She tried to shake off the thoughts of Min-suk from the night before, determined to focus on her job. But as soon as she stepped into the ward, she noticed something strange. Eyes following her, nurses whispering in corners, and a few giggles that quickly died down whenever she passed. Vivian frowned. "What is going on?" she muttered under her breath. One of her colleagues, Nurse Hannah, gave her a sly smile. "Vivian, you didn't tell us your patient was so special." Vivian blinked. "What do you mean?" Another nurse leaned in, whispering loudly enough for everyone to hear. "The billionaire! Mr. Lee, word is he refuses any nurse except you. Yesterday, he even called your name one time in his sleep." The nurses burst into soft laughter, while Vivian's face turned red. She waved her hands quickly. No, it's not like that. He's just difficult. You all know how stubborn he is." But the whispers only grew louder. Some said she had caught his eye. Others teased that she must have a secret romance with the richest man in Seoul. Just as Vivian was about to protest again, she heard his voice coming from the private ward. Strong, playful, and all too familiar. "Vivian, where's Vivian? I won't take medicine until she comes." The entire hallway fell silent, and every nurse turned to look at her with wide, knowing eyes. Vivian covered her face with her hands. Oh no! Vivian stormed into Min-suk's private ward, her shoes clicking sharply against the polished floor. She didn't even bother to knock. The billionaire was sitting up on the bed wearing a bulk suit and pretending to look weak, with a smug smile tugging at his lips the moment he saw her. "Mr. Min-suk!" Vivian hissed, slamming her chart on the table beside his bed. "What are you doing here again? Do you know we've caused? The whole hospital is talking about us. They think—" She stopped, flustered, her cheeks burning. "They think I'm your—" She bit her lip, refusing to finish the sentence. Min-suk leaned back on his pillows, eyes twinkling with mischief. "My what?" he asked softly. "My favorite nurse? My friend? Or maybe something more?" Vivian's heart skipped, but she quickly snapped back. "This is not a hotel, Mr. Min-suk. You cannot keep refusing other nurses and calling my name like, she waved her hands in frustration. "Like a spoiled child." He laughed, the sound warm and teasing. "Then stay, Vivian. You're the only one who makes me feel alive here." You walk in, and suddenly this hospital isn't so cold. This place feels like home. Her chest tightened. For a second, she forgot where she was, just staring at him. But then she caught herself and quickly turned away. "I am your nurse. Nothing more. Please, stop this nonsense before I get into real trouble." As she reached for the door, Min-suk's voice followed softly, filled with sincerity this time. "Even if you don't believe me now, I'm not joking, Vivian. I like you." Vivian froze for just a moment, her hand on the door handle, before leaving without a word. Her heart pounded the entire way down the hall. The next morning, Vivian promised herself she would not fall into Min-suk's games again. She had heard the whispers from the other nurses, the billionaire who kept falling sick just to see her. It was embarrassing, and she had her dignity to protect. But, of course, Min-suk showed up at the hospital once again, walking in dramatically with one hand on his chest. "I think my heart is not stable today," he said, his voice weak, though his eyes sparkled mischievously. Vivian, standing at the nurse's station, quickly looked away. She grabbed a chart and tried to disappear into another ward. Not today. He won't trap me again. But Min Suk had already spotted her. Vivian, he called out, loud enough for everyone in the corridor to hear. Some of the staff chuckled, exchanging knowing glances. Vivian froze. Slowly, she turned around, her professional mask firmly in place. Mr. Min Suk, you are fine. Please, go home and rest properly. This is not a hotel. I will, if you check on me personally, he countered smoothly, his smile boyish and disarming. Vivian sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. She tried to pass him on to another nurse, but he simply folded his arms, refusing to let anyone else touch him. At last, with the entire staff watching and whispering, she gave in. Fine, just a quick check. Min Suk grinned triumphantly, following her like an obedient child. Vivian's heart thumped in frustration, but deep down, she knew the truth. No matter how hard she tried, she could not avoid him. Min Suk sat on the hospital bed, his usual smug grin plastered on his face. He had exaggerated his sickness again, but this time there was something different in his eyes. When Vivian came in, she folded her arms tightly across her chest. Mr. Min Suk, you cannot keep doing this. You are wasting our time. You are not sick. Her voice was sharp, firm. But instead of his usual playful reply, Min Suk's smile faded. He looked down at his hands and said quietly, I know, but when I'm here, when I see you, I feel alive. Outside, everything feels empty. Vivian froze. His words carried a weight that pierced through her defenses. She tried to mask her reaction, turning away to adjust the stand even though there was no need. He continued, his tone softer than she had ever heard. You're the first person who talks to me without fear, without caring about my money or my name. Vivian, you treat me like a person. Her chest tightened. She wanted to stay strong, to keep her walls high. But when she looked back at him, his eyes were honest, stripped of the billionaire arrogance he usually carried. For the first time, she saw a lonely man longing for real connection. Vivian sighed, sitting down at the edge of the bed. You are impossible, Min Suk. Truly impossible. But her lips curved into a small smile she could not hide. Min Suk leaned back on the hospital bed with that mischievous glint in his eyes. Nurse Vivian, he said in his deep, charming voice, I think I need a different kind of treatment. Dinner with you? Vivian froze, blinking at him. Excuse me, she asked, narrowing her eyes as if she didn't hear him clearly. He chuckled softly. Dinner. With me. Tonight. I promise I'll even eat my vegetables. Vivian crossed her arms, trying to hide the sudden heat rushing to her cheeks. Mr. Min Suk, this is a hospital, not a dating app. You are my patient, and I don't eat dinner with patients. But I'm not your patient now, he countered quickly, leaning forward like a lawyer making his case. I'm a man asking a beautiful woman for one simple meal. Vivian sighed and shook her head, though a tiny smile betrayed her stern act. You're unbelievable. Do you think life is some kind of romantic drama? Yes, he said seriously, his eyes locking with hers, especially since you walked into mine. For a second, Vivian's heart stumbled. His words hit deeper than she expected, but she quickly pulled herself together. No, Mr. Min Suk, I cannot. Please go home and focus on your recovery and your work. Good night. She turned and walked out briskly, her footsteps echoing in the quiet corridor. Min Suk leaned back, smiling to himself despite her refusal. She didn't say never, she just said no tonight. Vivian dropped her bag on the couch and sighed, trying to shake off the memory of the hospital. She had refused Min Suk's invitation for dinner, and she told herself it was the right thing. He's just playing games. He's a billionaire and I'm a nurse. He'll get tired soon, she muttered. But as she boiled water for tea, she caught herself smiling at the thought of his silly grin. The way he had looked at her, like she was the only person in the world, stirred something deep inside her. She shook her head, quickly. Vivian, stop it. He's trouble. Yet she couldn't deny the warmth she felt. Meanwhile, in his luxury office high above Seoul, Min-suk sat at his desk surrounded by stacks of files. His assistants were briefing him about $1 million project, but his eyes kept drifting to the window. He saw Vivian's face everywhere, in the glass, in his coffee cup, even in the reflection of his computer screen. With an exasperated sigh, he pushed the files away. "What's happening to me? Why can't I stop thinking about her?" he whispered. For the first time in his life, the billionaire CEO couldn't concentrate on work. His mind wasn't on his empire, it was on the nurse who had captured his heart without even trying. And though Vivian tried to push the thought aside, that night when she lay her head on her pillow, her lips curved into a small smile she couldn't hide. For the first time, Min-suk did not storm into the hospital pretending to be sick. Instead, he sat outside on a bench near the entrance, dressed in a casual but expensive suit. His car was parked nearby, but he ignored it. He just wanted to see her. Vivian walked out after her shift, holding her bag, tired but graceful. The moment she spotted him, she froze. "Mr. Min-suk, what are you doing here? Don't tell me you're sick again." She crossed her arms, her face stern. He stood up quickly. "No, not sick. I'm waiting for you." Vivian blinked. "For me? Why? This is a hospital, and definitely not a dating spot." Min-suk smiled, his charm disarming. "I know. That's why I didn't go inside. I thought if I stay here, you won't run away from me." She sighed, shaking her head. "You're unbelievable. Do you think I have time for this?" "Yes," he replied stubbornly, his eyes locked on hers. "One dinner. Just one. Then, if you don't like me, I'll stop." Vivian looked around, realizing some staff were already watching them and whispering. Her heart beat faster. He was really not going to leave unless she agreed. "Fine," she said sharply. "Just one dinner. That's all." Min-suk's face lit up like a child who won a prize. "Deal." Vivian walked ahead quickly, trying to hide her smile. He followed, grinning, as if the whole world had just shifted in his favor. Thank you for watching. What do you think would happen in their relationship? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Episode 2 is going to be dropped in 3 days. Anticipate it because you are going to love it. If you are new here, please tell us where you are watching from. We would love to know you. And if you love this story, don't forget to like, comment, and share. Your kindness keeps us going. This is Afro Love Diaries, where every heartbeat tells a story.